Jeff Santos show that you are tuned into. We're here every Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We are working diligently to get us hooked up live to the Revolution Radio Network, which you will be able to go to. Probably a good 3 or 4 days away, but hopefully by the end of the week you can listen live on that website. You can go to hometowntalkradio.com and listen there. And, of course, those of you in Massachusetts on AM 1530, Taunton Middleborough. All right, our next guest comes to us from the great state of Washington. Not the D.C., but the state. Borders the Pacific Ocean, the great British Columbia to the north, the great Oregon to the south. He is a musician. He is a great investigative journalist. He is Mark Taylor-Canfield. He is a regular contributor to the Jeff Santos Show. Happy Tuesday, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing great. We had a good show last night at the Nectar again. Some of the best musicians in town showed up, and our featured artist was a Jamaican artist. She was amazing. I want to let you know we've been listening to the show on WVBF on the live stream at hometowntalkradio.com. So we've been listening to your guests today, and they're really great guests, Jeff. I really enjoyed Ian Turner. I really enjoy these progressive voices like our friend Mr. Craig from up there in Wisconsin. When is he going to run for governor, by the way, Jeff? I'm just going to throw that out there.
I don't know. And also, I know that a number of listeners, including you, would like to see that happen.
Yes.
That's great. And we may disagree a little bit on how to do single payer, but we both want to get there.
Robert
he's
Craig,
fantastic.
yeah.
And,
he's a great guy. But we had a great time listening to your last guest, too, Larry Court, because he really brought up some very, very interesting things that I'm going to introduce into some of my journalism, like the fact that, we have 200,000 troops overseas right now. And for Democracy Watch News, these are the kind of stories that we like to cover. We're also, by the way, covering the Equal Rights Amendment, which needs only one more state for ratification. And also, there's the 20th anniversary of the mass protests against the World Trade Organization that took place here in Seattle. So there's going to be a lot of events. Economist Stiglitz is going to be here as one of the keynote speakers for those events. And, of course, I'm always covering issues of press freedom around the world. But the story that just struck me on the news was Trump's immigration policy. He wants to start collecting DNA. I'm like, oh, come on. We have a 30-day period, apparently, for public comment, and I hope that people fill up the phone lines and send dozens and dozens of letters and emails individually, each one of us, because that is an issue that we cannot let lie. It's got to be challenged now. It's got to be challenged immediately. I don't know how many of my political representatives know that they're proposing that, but it's a bad thing. And first of all, I just can't tolerate a guy who cozies up with tyrants and dictators, which this guy does. But now doing stuff like this, taking DNA from people who are immigrants, that's just ridiculous, Jeff. We can't let that happen.
No doubt about it. And, look, talking to Larry, who has worked with the likes of Bernie Sanders to provide him with an understanding and a sane defense policy, is so important to have people like him. And, we're lucky to have him on the show on a regular basis. And, he just got back from Italy, as he said, and Czech Republic. And people are very concerned around the world that we don't have, a sane and consistent foreign policy. It's all over the place. One day, he wants to do something with Syria. Next day, he's calling up Erdogan and saying, don't be a fool. I can kick your butt, with our military and our economic sanctions. It's just crazy stuff. And, there's no, this is amateur hour trying to be president of the United States. And if anything we have learned is that this idea, you just got a great businessman or businesswoman and you can take care of everything. That's the worst possible scenario. Ladies and gentlemen, if we elect any more quote-unquote business leaders, this country will not exist as we know it. Well, as we know it the last couple of years. In what has been known as the United States of the past 50 years or 70 or 80. You had George W. Bush, a failed businessman, couldn't run the oil company, ran America into the ground, got us into a war with a lie. Dick Cheney should be in jail. And now we have this guy who doesn't have any clue, doesn't care much about anything except, whether or not his third wife is going to be his fourth wife, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's just out of control.
I could quote a woman that ABC News interviewed on the night of the election when Donald Trump was selected by the Electoral College, and her response was, we tried to, but for Italy it didn't work so well. So same situation, we have, and also I've been reading this really old book from like 1885. It's probably out of print now, but it's by Professor Park Fisher from Yale College, from Yale, and it's called Outlines of Universal History, and it's just sort of a 19th century version of a vision of world history. And one of the things that I keep reading about are these crazy emperors in Rome, and I just keep seeing similarities. I mean, maybe not to such an extreme, but this mercurial kind of attitude about, well, today I feel this and tomorrow I might feel something different, and it doesn't matter because I'm the dictator and what I say goes. Well, that is a lot of what Rome had to deal with, and why a lot of times the Republic had its rebirth after those periods, because people got tired of it. That's not how America works. We are not a dictatorship, and we are not Donald Trump's private business. Thank you. I just had to say that. There is a emoluments clause. There are all sorts of conflicts of interest, we know, in this administration. It's been there since the beginning. It was there during the campaign. We have people in jail because of what was going on during the campaign. We have payoffs and scandals and, all sorts of sexual innuendos and crazy, unethical behavior by a guy that, would probably do really well as an ancient Roman emperor. They would love his attitude. But I'm sorry, that's not the 21st century. We are civilized, apparently, supposedly, and we need to have a leader that reflects some kind of sane judgment and policy about foreign policy, domestic policy, and this move towards the right that is not just taking place in the United States, but in some other countries, really needs to be challenged by some very independent-minded and courageous thinkers, musicians, actors, politicians, elected representatives. People really need to step up now and bring the United States into the 21st century, because I'm a little bit tired of this American empire attitude, and treating the world like it's our colony from the 19th century or something. I mean, when America became an empire, a lot of even conservatives were very upset about that. When the Spanish-American War started and we ended up going into Cuba, the Philippines, and these other countries, there were conservatives in the United States and newspaper editors who were very, very much against that, because they could see this day when America would become its own empire, having, military bases all over the world. And then here we are once again caught up in a quagmire of human rights abuses and war and atrocities in another part of the world. And we are not the civilizing factor at this point, and it would be nice if we were. That's all I have to say on that, Jeff.
You're so right, Mark Taylor-Canfield. We're talking with MTC. Check it out on Democracy Watch News. You can check them out at Daily Kos. You can check them out right here every Tuesday on the Jeff Santos Show. If you want to, get in touch with Mark or any of our guests, you can email me. That's Jeff with a J at revolutionboston.com. You can also post on Facebook and Twitter at Jeff Santos Show, by the way. I want to ask you, Mark, because this was a big deal. We had Nina Turner on today, as you had said. And, they had 33,000 people, a very diverse crowd, AOC, the hottest person in politics, hottest star. She is exciting people to get engaged. When people that you talk to, whether they're in the music business or they're, and I don't mean music business meaning, Capitol Records. I'm talking about people who go to these great music clubs like Nectar and listen to you and others play. If they're excited by what they hear, 33,000 people going to a political event. This is not to go out and, and see, Queen and Alicia Keys play, at Central Park. This is to see a political candidates, like Nina Turner and Michael Moore and others to speak. And I just think, of course, AOC. And I just think that it is, interesting because Seattle is a big liberal area. Bernie won it big last time, probably has a chance to win it big again. Talk to me about what you feel is a opportunity here. Are people excited, I guess, is what my question is.
Well, first of all, you brought up the band Queen, which, of course, is one of the greatest bands in the world and a huge influence on me and my music. I was introduced to that band by a very good friend a long time ago. And I have to say this. So last night was the first time, Jeff. I'm so proud. It was a super proud moment for me. This woman from Jamaica, actually, who was an amazing performer herself, actually came up to me and she said, "Mark, you have this theatrical kind of presence on stage. You're like Freddie Mercury." And I almost fainted because he is one of the greatest singers of all time. So anybody who says that to me, she's now my best friend. I'm going to follow her on Instagram and Twitter and every social media. Yeah, and I'm going to make sure I support everything she does because that's an amazing compliment. So thank you very much. As far as the Bernie Sanders thing, he's not alone this time is one of the ways I look at it. It seemed like in 2016, Bernie was kind of out there on his own as a progressive. And this time, he's got a few friends, even Elizabeth Warren, although I think to a lot of the Bernie supporters around here, I would admit she's not quite progressive enough. There's always that litmus test of, are they conservative enough? Are they progressive enough? Are they liberal enough? Well, in some cases, some people would say that, they would prefer Bernie Sanders' style over Elizabeth Warren, not because of anything personally against Elizabeth Warren, but just they think that Bernie Sanders is the guy, that he's been pushing the progressive agenda for a long time now. And the two of them together, in the minds of a lot of folks around me, and I don't know if this is a good test, but I'm in Seattle, we have this progressive bubble, but they really like the idea of an Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders ticket. And nobody seems to care who.
That's interesting. There's an article on NBC today.
It doesn't matter who's in the lead in the ticket. They just want both of them in the White House, right? And that would be like the dream team for a lot of progressives in the Northwest.
Well, it's not Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson,
I think
Larry
people are
Bird.
excited because it's not just Bernie this time. So it's not just rah, the key arenas or the Safeco Field bringing in tens of thousands of people. It's, hey, there's Elizabeth Warren, too. And, maybe he's not going to be the only target, from the right wing at this point because they've got several people they have to deal with now who are pushing universal health care, and some of the issues that Bernie Sanders has been fighting for years. And by the way, I think I mentioned this to you. I did get a chance to talk to Jim McDermott and interview him about a month ago on Labor Day when Robert Reich was here, and I got to meet him too. And McDermott went off on healthcare. He dropped the F-bomb several times because he said, I'm fed up. I've been fighting for universal health care since 1973. What is wrong with this country? And so it's one of those issues that I think myself and a lot of progressives in this part of the country and millennials are thinking, we really should have dealt with this a long time ago. We really should have. I mean, come on. This is something that Canada has had for a long time on the north of our border. And all of this right-wing propaganda about how terrible it is to get health care in Canada. I have friends who are dual citizens, and they get great health care in Canada, and they have no complaints. That's just my...
Let me say this, if you can hear me, Mark. I am frustrated by whether it's our good friend Robert Craig or others that are ready to give in to the Buttigiegs and others on this public option. I think we have to fight until the last possible moment to get a single-payer health care. Now, it's going to start incrementally. It's going to start, as Sanders is talking about, from 65 to 55, and the next one was 55 to 45. And it may end up stopping there. The majority of people who desperately need it right now are probably, above the age of 45. You're not there yet, Mark, but as you get a little older, obviously you need more health care. And obviously people in their 20s and 30s do too. But it may take a while. But I think if you at least start on that path, that to me is the winning way, and it's the way our friends in Australia and Canada and other countries start. I mean, it started in Canada in one province, a relatively population-wise very small province of Saskatchewan. And then it made its way to another one, and before you know it, Ottawa decided, okay, well, let's do this, nationally. Now, that's a much smaller country, I understand, geographically, massive. But, the fact is they deliver what they deliver, and nobody is wanting to come to Seattle. I always joke about this fact, and you're right there. Now, how many people do you see coming from Vancouver in British Columbia, Victoria, that beautiful province there to the north of you? Oh, get away. I got to get my health care in the United States. It's terrible in Canada. It's so cheap and so great in the United States. Anybody ever come to you and say that? I doubt it.
People would rather go into British Columbia to buy prescription drugs because it's much cheaper, and sometimes they do. And so Bernie, that was one of the issues on the campaign is, hey, we're going up to Canada and we're going to get some prescription drugs for people and show you, what the difference is. So that was a smart move. And as far as healthcare, our thoughts and blessings go out to Senator Sanders and his health, but I think, he just wants the rest of America to have the same kind of health care that he has access to. He was well taken care of. He's got a really good chance of 100% recovery, and it's looking good, and he got the best care in the world, right there where he was at. So he would just like the rest of the country to have that. I don't think that is a terrible thing to want for people. And as far as, the insurance companies, I'm not in the insurance industry. I don't need to give a disclaimer. I hold no stocks in insurance companies. The writing is on the wall that there is a move towards a more progressive and, democratic socialist sort of way of doing things in this country. And it already happened in the past even under Johnson, the war on poverty, and under FDR. It's just something that it's an unfulfilled promise, just like some of our promises in the U.S. Constitution have been sort of unfulfilled, which is why the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment is so important right now. But it's the same issue with healthcare and education. These are basic needs that you need for your infrastructure for your country. And if you want security and you want prosperity, which is what the right wing always chants, then there you go. Make sure people are educated. Especially in this high-tech world, things are changing really quickly. Let me tell you, even as an artist and a journalist, I can tell you that the industries change quickly, the technologies and the platforms that people use change quickly, and you really need to make sure that people are updated on that. Otherwise, you end up, left out of the economy. And I talked about this not too long ago with some other folks about, the disappearance of the middle class in the United States. The fact that my father was able to work and get a good salary, in medical benefits for all of his children, buy a house, a boat, a couple cars, whatever, have a pretty good, life and have a good pension. And I don't see that happening for a lot of folks in the generations coming up right now. And that's a concern, and that's why I think it's moving in a different direction, because people are kind of fed up with the fact that their grandparents did great. After the Depression was horrible for people, right? So some of the people who survived that generation went on to get things like Social Security and eventually the Civil Rights, Affirmative Action, the Civil Rights Act, and all of that changed things. So a lot more people got opportunity. But now if you see the disparity between the rich and the poor, you have to start to wonder, where is that opportunity? That's another thing that the right wing is always harping on is, this is a land of opportunity, gold, streets of gold. So show me the proof.
Yeah. And show me the money.
Give people some support. Give them a livable wage. How about that? That would be great. If you want to pave the streets with gold, you better start by paying the people that are paving the road a livable wage. Thank you.
No doubt. You're welcome, Mark. You can run for city council or mayor of Seattle in my book anytime. We're talking with MTC, the Renaissance Man, here on the Jeff Santos Show. I want to let you know, Mark, that I'm wearing my 2014 Tom Petty tour, the late, great Tom Petty T-shirt. And, I often think, and obviously I think you're a good example of this, that, musicians, and you mentioned Freddie Mercury earlier, have an ability to not only inspire, but, politically, you think of John Lennon, you think of Bono, of U2. I mean, Bruce Springsteen, who was, on Jimmy Kimmel last night, they have an ability to be political leaders, as well. I mean, the Democratic Party, and it, doesn't always work. But they have brought Bruce Springsteen to the edge, to get people to come out and vote. I think John Kerry did it in 2004. I think Obama did it in 2012. I don't know if he did it in 2008. And Hillary Clinton did it in 2016. And I think you gotta be a little more diverse. A lot of African American artists that inspire and also can connect with that an audience. I just think that that's an important piece of getting people out to vote. We talked to Frank Watkins, Reverend Jesse Jackson, senior advisor. And, I remember talking to leaders like Alcee Hastings in Florida, Congressman from South Florida, and others. And he says, you get some musicians out here, you can go ahead and expect people to come out to vote. You got to inspire. I think that's the other piece of the puzzle. Your thoughts on that as somebody who understands the music community?
Well, there is a great group called Rock the Vote, and they use that hashtag Rock the Vote, and they concentrate and focus on voter registration for young folks at music venues. So that's how I got to meet Tom Morello, Jello Biafra. Well, actually, it's the second time I ran into Jello Biafra, but some really great, I think Chuck D and some other folks have been involved with stuff like that, where, you go to rock venues like the Showbox Theater, which is where this happened in Seattle, and you have great bands, like Tom Morello played that night, and, they also kind of talked to the crowd a little bit about, issues like, what is right-wing fascism? What is actually happening in this country? How do you stop hate speech? How do you join together and unify against some of these negative trends in the country? And it was really beautiful. A lot of people really enjoyed themselves. It was a whole day long event, so it wasn't something where you just show up at 9 o'clock and then you rock out until 2 or something. It was all day long. People were showing up at the Showbox Theater and hanging out and educating themselves. They had tables set up where they were giving out voter registration forms and just, encouraging people to vote. And it's obvious, actually, just from what I know of the people who performed, that they all tend to be a little bit on the progressive side, or that, they weren't there supporting Trump or other right-wing candidates. It is an independent organization, and I think it does a great job. And that, I think, is really inspiring to see some young people. When you go and you see someone that you really admire and you really appreciate their talent, and they're just being honest with you from the stage about what's going on in the country and how you can help. So it did actively encourage younger folks to register, and I do believe that it made a difference in the election of Barack Obama. Just like there was a lot of progressive talk radio at that time, which I also think helped him get elected.
No doubt.
The rock world needs to step up. Some have, and some are willing to do it. I have to tell you, though, that some artists just feel like they want to be left alone because they're artists and they're a little bit sensitive or temperamental. But Eddie Vedder, he was here in Seattle supporting Ralph Nader at one point and sang a song on stage. I got to talk to him a little bit. He was really shy, but he was there to support Ralph Nader and the Green Party at that time. And he sang a song on ukulele on stage about Bill Gates, I think, about some rich guy. And that's pretty much all he said is when he got up there, I'm going to sing the song about a rich guy and, vote for Ralph Nader. And he was playing ukulele, and I thought, this is crazy. This is Eddie Vedder from one of the loudest, most, aggressive rock bands in the world, and he's up there playing a ukulele, and I don't know if my mind can stand this. I mean, I love Bruce Springsteen's album, Nebraska, his solo album, which is all acoustic, and it's a really beautiful album. I think he did, on a 4-track or something. It's a really great album. But I was kind of mind-blown by Eddie Vedder up there singing on the ukulele, and then a couple months later, my friends informed me, Eddie just won a Grammy Award nomination for his solo CD release on ukulele. And there he is on the poster or whatever on his paddleboard out in the middle of a lake somewhere in the Northwest with his ukulele playing along. So musicians, it's great when you see them get involved with politics. And sometimes they actually run for office, which is interesting. I mean, if we're going to have a president that's a reality TV star, why not a famous rock?
Yeah. Hey, I'll leave you with this because we've got to run in about 30 seconds here. But
sure.
Peter Garrett from Midnight Oil, Our Beds Are Burning, great tune in the 1980s, was a member of Parliament for a good 15, if not 20 years. In the land down under of Australia, so it's not won't be the last time that rock and roll and politics get involved, and good for him. I'd love to have him on the show because he probably could tell us a few things about the world of music
sound system in the White House. Jeff. That's my first promise as president. I ran into a protest kind of joke candidate for president once, and that was my promise. I wanted Brad Pitt for Secretary of State, and Angelina Jolie is my vice presidential candidate, and everybody's going to vote for me because of that. But it didn't turn out that way.
Hey, Mark, we got to run, my friend. We'll talk to you next Tuesday. Congrats on the next nectar. That's awesome, man. Thank you so much. Thank Mark Taylor-Canfield, all of our guests. By the way, Teacher Tuesday was today. Our good friend Melissa Tomlinson is out at a conference, as well as the entire Badass Teachers group. So we couldn't get anybody on today, but we're going to try to get somebody from what is happening in Chicago right now at the Chicago Teachers Union and their strike against the city of Chicago. So we'll get into that later this week by next Tuesday. Keep on fighting, folks. That's the major part of this. I want to thank Johnny Ray, thank Mark Pacheco, and Mr. Tony Lopes for allowing me to do this show and for producing the broadcast as Johnny Ray does. My name is Jeff Santos, and I gotta go!
.30 a.m. and now W259DD 99.7 FM WBBF Middleborough, Taunton.
Visit TICnetwork.org.
Coming up next from the Talking Information Center, please enjoy selected readings from The Week magazine. And as always, thank you for listening.